I spent a little bit of time on this thumbnail, Miles, but I did not, of course, somehow people are able to read the headline incorrectly. GC13, the Diet Pepsi Cat in the chat, says, what do the devs owe us? And she grabs her checkbook. Maybe I should have made the topic of today's show a little bit more clear. Miles.
Yo.
Milk first or cereal first?
Cereal first.
Yeah, I mean, I can't believe there's people that do it any other way. I want to know in the chat if there's any psychopaths, because I think this is a pretty good indicator. Anybody who puts milk in the bowl first, doesn't the cereal just float on top of the milk at that point?
Doesn't the milk just splash back in your eyes and then you can blind yourself and then slip and cause some horrific accident?
I mean, that's a good way to start every Friday, I think.
It's the same with the British version of that, I think, is when you make a cup of tea. Some people say you put the tea bag in, then the milk, so that when you put the hot water on, it doesn't scald the tea bag leaves, and it's supposedly a nicer tea. But no, you want to put the milk in last, because then you know exactly how much milk you want.
That was the most British collection of words that anyone has ever uttered all at once together in that sentence.
Well, I could have added proper job. Yeah. proper cup of tea, bloody hell, governor.
Bloody hell. Let's
not enough milk.
Show. Oh my God.
In it.
This is PSVR GamesCast Live. We film live every single Monday, Wednesday, and thank God it's Friday, right here on YouTube, 6 p.m. Eastern. Catch it live or don't. It's totally your call. If you don't want to watch it live, then you can't be part of this amazing chat that's going on. But I got to say, if you're not watching it live, click the live chat and watch to see what people are saying, because it's always infinitely more entertaining than the things that we're saying. I promise you that, which is probably not a good thing when it comes to us saying that you should watch our show. But anyway, my name is Brian Popnician, right here, PSVR Without Parole, and this guy over here, all the way at the other side of the pond, Miles Dyer, from Miles Dyer Official over on Instagram.
Love it. How you doing, Brian?
I'm good, man. I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. 11 o'clock at night here. So for anyone in the UK, it's late, but it's Friday. And for me, I spoke a bit behind the scenes with Brian. I'm not going to get into too much detail, but it's been a difficult week for me. A lot of stuff going on in my personal life, but to get to Friday, this is honestly one of my favorite times of the week. The only other favorite time is my live shows on Wednesdays. Just live shows are really good fun. It's great just to chill, relax with people from around the world and talk about things that we're passionate about. And I'm just surprised how quickly this week has come around. But love you all, and just keep all the positive energy coming, because it's great. Yeah, we can do that.
Sending virtual hugs. Dude, I felt really bad because I do love your live shows on your Miles Dyer YouTube channel. And this week you had you were basically talking about was it the best movies of all time or your favorite movies of all time? What did you do?
Yeah, it was your what are your all-time favorite movies? And I always like to keep it general, because even whether it's me speaking to someone on a dating site or out networking with people, if you say what is your favorite movie, I think it's so difficult.
Not difficult. Never-ending Story.
Really?
All day, every day. Since I was 6, never changed.
So Never-ending Story is on what I call my gasp list, which is, and this doesn't just apply to movies, it could also be to books and for games. My gasp list is something I've not seen or played, if it's a game, that makes people gasp when I admit it, because they're like, you've not seen The Goonies? You've not seen The Godfather? No, I haven't seen any of those movies, and I've not seen Never-ending Story either. I definitely need... Oh, there we go. It's always the expression as well. But it's also the same with games. Like for Christmas, my friend Rob got me Assassin's Creed Valhalla, and I've never played an Assassin's Creed game before. So that's like another... brand of game that everyone should have played by now. It's been long enough.
Yeah, it's craziness. I don't think you have to go too crazy about it. I think Assassin's Creed, and I know I'm probably in the minority here, but Black Flag was really all you needed to play. Black Flag,
I've heard that from a lot of people.
Should have just been its own game, because just being a pirate is all I wanted to do. I didn't need all the Assassin's Creed nonsense to go along with it. Being a pirate was amazing. Loved that game.
Doesn't Assassin's Creed VR seem like an obvious thing to happen?
You mean the thing that just got announced today?
Oh yeah.
It's not on PlayStation VR, so you're forgiven for maybe not having paid attention to that. Assassin's Creed.
This is the Nexus, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nathan was saying it's more of an experience than anything else. I didn't look into it because I have a hard time caring about stuff that's not coming to PlayStation VR, and I think that might actually be a great segue. Right into our first news story, which I shouldn't be laughing because I'm actually really kind of pissed off. But for anyone who is looking forward to Among Us, and I know there's just a gasp that just befell the entire GameCat community. For anyone who's looking forward to it, Shell Games is kind of being pretty transparent now about saying this is not coming to PlayStation VR 1. It's coming to Steam and Oculus and PSVR 2 whenever it launches. And I think there's a little bit of snarkiness in that statement. They're saying PSVR 2 whenever it launches, because I think they're kind of upset that maybe Sony's not telling them what they want to know. But yeah, this could have been the game that carried us for months and months and months while waiting for PSVR 2, and instead, it's the game we're all just going while we're waiting for PSVR 2.
Especially off the back of Among Us having just been released on consoles very recently, so it felt like there was this great coming together. It is frustrating, and it also makes the wait for PSVR 2 start to feel a bit more tangible, the vastness of the waiting, because without really any games being announced, even the Horizon, we've seen like 10 seconds of it. PSVR 2 is on the horizon. I was trying to avoid that pun, but it wasn't going to happen. But we don't know many of the games. My concern is, as they start announcing more and more games, it's going to make the wait more and more painful to do. So I'm kind of happy for them to just say nothing until it comes out and go, and we've got all these games. I know that's not what's going to happen, but but my first feeling, more than a thought, when this Among Us news was announced about it not coming to PSVR until the PSVR 2 was, okay, this is something I'm going to be annoyed of having to wait for, because I'm really excited to play it.
Yeah, no, I am too. And honestly, I don't think Among Us was going to be a game that I was going to get all too excited for. If Among Us had come out 4 or 5 years ago, I would have been like, oh, this is great. I'm so glad we have this in VR. But this was a game I was super crazy excited about because of the impending drought. Because we had so little to play, I was like, I'm just going to wrap my arms around this and hold on for fucking dear life, because this is my lifesaver. This is the thing that's going to carry us to shore, the shore of PSVR 2. I don't even know what I'm saying, but
for me, like Among Us, I've never really got into it that much. I see the appeal. I've played different variations of it, like even Fortnite's version, and I see the appeal. But even the console version, voice chat isn't open with everyone. You have to use pre-select text prompts. You can do some custom ones. And that kind of loses the fun of it. It's actually like hearing the tone of voice of people as they're trying to, pass off a lie and be convincing. So something I'm really excited about the VR component is it's going to be a very social game. I think of Zenith The Last City, the social component of that game. That is what I love most about VR, is like living games with people and being in these worlds and doing things together. And I just, looking at the trailer for Among Us VR, I have to say, when it actually was announced on the showcase, it's one of the first VR trailers I've seen where I was like, this is actually selling VR. Like, as you're a lot of the time you're seeing all these VR, obviously it's all footage from VR games, but you're like, okay, it looks like a game, and yeah, I get it, it's in VR. But in this trailer, you're looking at it and going, I can actually see why it'd be amazing in VR, because everyone knows what Among Us is, but you can tell in that, okay, it's not that you're a character on a big screen, it's you're doing a task while now looking over your shoulder, and there's just someone there. And what I think a lot of people who've not played VR don't understand until they're going to experience it is Minecraft. When I went into the VR of that, creepers, the famous monsters in it, are the same height as your character. But when you're playing on a flat screen, they seem like quite small. But when you're in VR and they're the same height as you, it's a lot more intimidating. Like there's just this different perspective in VR that makes things more intimidating. And so once again, I can't wait to experience it for Among Us with friends or with strangers who are vocally trying to convince you, that they're the good guys.
Yeah, I got to say that I got a lot of great people in the chat right now with a lot of great comments. Professor Lilith said, "Don't worry, Brian. Now you have time to get really familiar with No Man's Sky." Maybe I don't know. We'll see how desperate I get, Professor Lilith. Bambino Ramos says, "Love you guys. Happy Friday. Listening while driving from Worcester to Boston. Listen, if you put a siren on top of your car." And you just drive around, and that you just wait for me to say sirens on my end, and you'll know exactly where I live. You can kind of triangulate my position that way. Professor Lou, with a $2 tip, says this week's Sunday multiplayer Squadrons, 2 p.m. Eastern.
Nice.
Yeah, guys, do not forget to join our Discord. In fact, this hour is the last hour you have to get in on the Lucky's Tale giveaway. I'm going to be announcing all 6 winners for that: 3 North American, 3 European, after the show in Discord. And so if you want to get in on the Sunday multiplayer games that Professor Lilith takes care of, make sure you do that too. Click the link in the description below. If there's a link to support the stream, and there's a Streamlabs thing, please ignore that. I got to figure out how to get rid of that. I don't understand why that keeps popping up. Firebird Old School with the 100 Sekiro says, "Happy Saturday." Well, for some of us. Wild Hour the Game Cat with the Australian $5 tip says 109. This one's for you, obviously, Miles. 195 degrees Fahrenheit, 92 degrees Celsius, just under boiling. Perfect tea.
Okay, noted.
I didn't know
the centigrade. I'm glad you did give both because we don't do Fahrenheit over here. Yeah, it always confuses me.
I don't think they don't even do it in Canada, man. I think the U.S. might be the only place that does it.
Really?
Every time I talk to Rypop, he's like converting shit for us. I'm like, I don't know. He's talking about liters and stuff. How many gallons is that? Hey, man, but there is some good news with the bad. Oh, I'm sorry. You know what? We got one more tip. Jamie with the $2 tip says, "Won't play Among Us. There'll be too much to play on PSVR 2. I do have to say, any developer right now who's waiting to release their game on PSVR 2, probably for the best, right? Because it's going to be a much larger audience than the thing we have now. But also, good luck, because there's going to be a whole lot more shit to play. So your game's not going to stand out on the PlayStation Store like it once would. I don't think Among Us is going to have any problems, though. Miles, there is good news with the bad news, and the good news comes to us today from Endreams, because Endreams, without saying, can you do me a favor? Oh, nice. We're representing the Endreams uniform.
This is the uniform, isn't it? Well, actually, I think they need to. We were saying they need to give us new uniform, like Endreams. The new Endreams uniform should be Ghostbusters with our names on the badges.
Yes. Oh my God! Don't tease me like that,
Jimmy. Sort it out.
But the new Ghostbusters game that was announced during the Meta Showcase on Wednesday looked amazing. I'll regardless of whether you thought it looked amazing or not, the fact that there's going to be PKE meters and there's an official licensed Ghostbusters game that's all going to be made by Endreams in VR, I think everyone's excited about that. And we were all a little bit curious. Like, is this going to be an Oculus exclusive? Is it going to be a Quest exclusive? How is this going to work? And without really saying anything, the company line that Endreams has been putting out there is that it will be exclusive at launch, but they will have updates on other headsets a little further down the line. So it's coming to Quest exclusively at first, and then it sounds like there is some sort of exclusivity agreement. And then after that, who knows? and they did say at the showcase everything shown was for 2022. So if PSVR 2 is going to be first quarter of next year, how long the exclusivity lasts for? Hopefully it goes right up to it ends just before PSVR 2. That'd be really nice. So that was sort of sort of where my head was at with all of these games, because again, like it would be one thing if Ghostbusters was coming out next month, and we're all like, "Oh man, we gotta wait 9 months to play it on PSVR 2, right?" But yeah, if it's coming out closer to the end of the year and it's just a couple of months, like no big deal at all. No big deal at all. The tornado just joined us. Here's her tail. Look, it's her tail. Okay. All right, man. But let's move on to a little bit more news. This is obviously good news. We have to kind of like read between the lines sometimes when it comes to exclusivity deals, but this one, to me at least, feels pretty transparent. It's coming to other headsets, and there's really no other headsets we're talking about other than PSVR 2. And then the last bit of news before we get into our topic of the day is that are you familiar with this game, Miles? Tale of Onogoro?
No.
This is brand new to you because I'm going to bring up the trailer for it right now. And
while he does, if you're in the chat, be sure to smash that like button. We I think by the end of the last Friday show, we hit 200 by the end, which was amazing. So I would ask anyone in the chat, just every so often, just keep encouraging people to hit it up. Let's see if we can hit 250 likes today. That'd be amazing. I don't know what we'll do if we hit 250, but I mean, we'll
just ask for. Listen. If you give a mouse a cookie, it's going to ask for a glass of milk. And so if we get us to 250, we're just going to ask for 300. I mean, it's.
Well, then that's what. Yeah, next week we'll do that. Yeah, it will never be enough. It'll never be enough.
Never be enough. We're fucking greedy bastards. Oh man, Tale of Onogoro. It's coming from Amada Studio, and this is the same team behind Last Labyrinth. Now, I don't know if anybody out there played Last Labyrinth. I can't imagine too many people did, but it was essentially a horror escape room game where you weren't really controlling the action. You were kind of tied to a wheelchair, and you were pointing with like a laser pointer and telling a little girl in front of you what to do. And it was the most annoying form of puzzle interaction I've ever experienced outside of Tale of a Fragmented Star, and that's another fucking deep cut for anybody who's been watching the channel for a long time. It's annoying to tell another character what to do in VR. When you're in VR, you want to reach out and do things. You don't want to be using a laser pointer and go, no, that thing. No, please do that thing. And she goes, do you mean over here? And I'm like, yeah, that thing over here. It's like, like it's so infuriating sometimes. So yeah, and I know some people liked it. But I will tell you that the fact that this team made that game is one of the few reasons I'm scared about this game. I just don't know if
I do like the art style. I mean, to be honest, I like the art style on some of the shots, and in others, I'm like, I'm not so sure about that. But like the main character looks cool, and yeah. I mean, I'm interested to see, but I don't really have any expectations of it. So. And I had no experience with that wonderful game you just described.
Yeah, and again, I think Last Labyrinth is a little divisive. I think some people really enjoyed it.
Right.
Let me know. Twitcher is in the chat. He says the box quote from the VR grid is "It's better than Last Labyrinth." Okay.
There we go.
Yeah. But real quick here, we're going to jump over to the Quest website and find out that this is a $30 game. They are saying that it's they're calling it an adventure with the cute anime girl. And already I'm scared because we don't need, like, I don't know. You know what? I'm just going to be quiet. Portal meets Shadow of the Colossus in this memorable and intimate title. I always get real nervous when people start using huge iconic games in the descriptions of their games, saying, "Oh yeah, Portal in the Shadow of the Colossus." These two games that are like pretty universally well renowned. Like just fucking everybody loves these games.
Especially when that's not in quotation marks. Like if you're going to use it, take it from a review, like someone else has said it. But when you claim it yourself, I mean, I respect their boldness, but that does make me feel all right.
Yep.
Big yourselves up.
No, I'm scared. It says unique VR puzzles. Work with Haru to deactivate the large puzzle-like barriers blocking your path.
Oh, there we go.
Teamwork is key, as some objects can only be used by one of you. Now, I mean, the fact is you're not bound to a wheelchair in this game, and so you are running around and you are doing things. And so you're probably not just saying, hey, please go do this for me over here. It's not that. And so this might be a little bit more fun than Last Labyrinth was. And hopefully they learned something from Last Labyrinth. You know, we saw the same thing with
I'd love it if one of the bullet points was, now this time we have 200 ways of saying, do you mean this one? No, this one.
Yeah, yeah. This is okay. Well, I mean, luckily though, this is another game coming to PlayStation VR or PSVR 1. It's being published by Perp Games, and so we love everybody over at Perp. So keep up the good work, guys, and hopefully this one will be worth picking up and something that'll pass the time while we wait for PSVR 2. We got to move along a little bit though, because we've got quite the headline to talk about today. Miles, this is I think this is going to take the better part of 7 hours, so get ready. But we've been asking a lot of questions about what we as gamers deserve, and I know gamers have a strange sense of entitlement sometimes when it comes to gaming, and so I think they frequently ask for more than they deserve. And maybe even I, as a reviewer, sometimes ask for more than I deserve from a game. It's totally possible. I don't want to put that outside the realm of possibilities here. But I also think that that when we start talking about games that require updates, games that you purchase, you spend your hard money on, we've sort of hit this weird period where we expect day one patches. We expect games to be updated over time, but a lot of games are just fine on day one. And so I want to be very, very clear that we're going to talk about games or studios that have done some things that we really weren't appreciative of, and maybe ways to change that moving forward. But we are certainly not talking about games today that came out and they were fine, and maybe they didn't deliver everything you wanted, but you can't just demand an update that wasn't ever in the budget or planned or whatever. So we are not talking about games today that came out and were just fine. Those aren't the games we're talking about. We're talking about games that came out and had something wrong with them, or eventually had something wrong with them, and those things were not addressed by the developers. Miles, what trailer should we be playing during all of this? There's too many games to cover. Oh man,
I know. And especially because how quickly we're going to be covering them.
Here, let's just play some sizzle reel, man. Let's play. I don't know. Is there a launch sizzle reel? There it is. Here's the PlayStation.
Because I do think as we're having this conversation, and when we ever talk about these more overall conversations about VR and go into criticisms, this isn't about having digs at one developer or another and pointing the finger at them. So when we bring up examples, this isn't to condemn them fully. It's just reflecting on. We're going to talk about what has worked and what hasn't worked. And it's just about having an honest conversation because, whenever we were talking 2 weeks ago about can VR be too real or, what would the perfect, VR launch be? This is because we care as a community. And by talking about these things, we hopefully give ideas because a lot of these developers do like the feedback. They do welcome it as long as it's constructive. And that's what we're going to try and do today. By the way, I just saw Arkham VR on screen. I actually played it this week. I hadn't played it before.
Oh, really?
And really, yeah, I was interested because I always hear it's a good introduction to VR, because it's been quite a few years now. But I still was really impressed with the polish. And it's definitely, if I was showing someone VR for the first time, that's definitely a game I'd put them in.
Yeah, it's especially the ending without spoiling anything. Oof,
oh God, definitely. Yeah, dude, that is, that ending is impressive.
Yeah. But yeah, like you were saying, VR is still sort of in its infancy, and we're sort of lucky to be able to have this kind of communication with so many of these smaller studios, the ones who are going to be at the forefront of VR moving forward. And so these studios learning their lessons now and sort of being oof, maybe we should have done that. Oof, maybe we shouldn't have done that. And being, even being part of these conversations, there are certainly developers in the chat as we speak. But unfortunately, only good developers. The bad ones are probably not listening, and so this is the time to figure this shit out. And so there's no better time to have this conversation than before the next generation of VR gets here. So, but again, what we're trying to do here is say, what do we as gamers deserve when we put down our hard-earned cash on a VR game? What do we deserve, and are there any solutions for these problems that we've encountered? Now, straight away, not every developer is really subject to this criticism. There's been a lot of developers out there who've been doing it right.
Yep.
Any come to mind?
You're asking that have done it right.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Well, so I mean, I always think about what Sin Studios have done with Swordsman.
Right.
They have been incredibly engaged with the community. They have taken on feedback. They've not always said they're going to, do certain things that have been feedbacked about, but they've also enacted on others, and they've kept updating the game. Now, there are some people that say it's a very, basic game without much vastness in terms of game mechanics. It's like it is just sword fighting, and if that's what you're into, you're going to love it. But I want something a bit more. But they've said, no, this is the game we're making, but we are going to keep improving it in terms of mechanics and also different levels. And I think they've been really impressive for that and should be commended. Like, they've not just said, we've released a game and now let's move on to the next one. Because so many people can do that. They go, right, we've sold it now. Let's just move to something else. There's actually value in playing the long game, because then you build with the community, especially a community like the PSVR community, because it is in its infancy and everyone talks with each other. And going back to the point you made earlier about some devs, will be making big mistakes with this, and some will do good ones and put the effort in. We actually know, we can sense when developers are trying. So when we criticize and they say, good point, we're going to work on it, we respect that. Some developers fear that, and so they close themselves off and don't communicate to protect themselves. But actually, we realize, oh no, we're being closed off. They're being disingenuous, or they're trying to hide something.
Right.
And it means they're not given a second chance, whether it's with future updates or a later game.
Right. And just to kind of go further with the Swordsman comparison, that when that game launched, it was fine. Like there was, no one looked at it and went, well, this is fucking broken, or this needs to be fixed, this needs to be addressed, this is blah, blah, blah. There were, here and there were like minor complaints, but like that's every game. They released a game that was ready to launch and just decided to take the ball and run with it. They were like, oh wow, people are really interested in this. Let's keep adding to it and keep the interest coming. And I think that, you could certainly give a shout out to Skydance as well with Saints and Sinners. I mean, talk about a game that at launch was above and beyond one of the best VR games we'd ever played, and then kept delivering the content with not only the trials but also aftershocks. It was like a 3 or 4 hour DLC. No need for that whatsoever. Like they delivered a $40 game that felt like a $40 game, and we played the crap out of it. It was a lot of fun. They didn't need to keep bringing us stuff, and everything worked at launch, right? And then they just kind of again kept running with that. So lots of amazing examples here. Lots of developers out there doing it right. Twitcher, I didn't read this ahead of time. I'm sure I'm going to regret that. Twitcher, I'm sure I love Swordsman Now GameCat, whatever, 5 quid says, I'm sure Brian only brought Miles Dyer on the show so that he would no longer be the only one whose name everybody misspelled. Miles Dyer, too wise. Oh, too wise. Too wise.
I like it.
W-I-S-E,
no, too wise. I'll take that. I love that. That's wicked.
Too wise.
Too wise.
Nice.
It is true. Solidarity with the wise.
All right. So let's talk about the kind of games that we are going to talk about. We are going to talk about games that had issues right from launch and were never fixed. Like this is one of those cardinal sins, right? Where it's just like, dude, like why does your game have click turning or only teleportation or this game breaking bug or this or that or whatever, right? And it's just like, or certain shit just didn't work and never got addressed, which is a huge sin in the VR world. B, made promises and then didn't keep them in terms of delivering updates or whatever it was going to be. I think that that's one of those that hurts the most, because you can read a review and say, "Oh, this game has click turning and teleportation. Not for me. Let me know when it gets the update." But when you read a review that says, "This is what the game is now and it's awesome," and man, we can't wait for these updates that are supposedly coming later, and then those things never happen.
Yeah,
that's painful too. This is a big one that's going to be an issue for a lot of people, including Twitcher. It says that games that either shut down their servers or have announced the shutting down of their servers that will actually render the multiplayer mode unplayable, or even worse, the entire game unplayable. There are games out there that like are literally coasters now, because that's all you can do with them. I have games in my collection that you can just not play. You put it in and nothing happens, right? It gets to a menu screen, and that's about as far as you can probably go. And then finally, the games that stop supporting one platform, specifically PSVR, because this is PSVR GamesCast Live, while continuing support for another platform. So basically just abandoning part of your user base, probably because it didn't sell so well over there. So, and I think we do need to kind of kick off the show with the one that's maybe on everybody's mind right now because it's the most recent example of this, and that's Swords of Gargantua. Developers over at Third Verse. They made what I consider to be like a really fun multiplayer dungeon crawler, and and they were pretty good about updates. They were like, oh, here's new weapons and here's new blah blah blah, new challenges and whatever. And the quest was getting them day and day, like saying, okay, here you go. This is a thing that we were promising you. Here it is. And then like later on, we'd get an update on PSVR, and it was like kind of half-hearted somehow, where it was like, oh yeah, that same weapon that's in the quest version, here it is, but you can only use it in this mode or something like that, right? It was like super half-hearted versions of the same update. And then just last week they announced that they're going to be shutting down the servers in September. Now, this game's only been out for less than a year and a half, and so I think that really hurts a lot of people. And I don't know if we want to here. You know what? I really want to have this trailer up.
Do it.
There it is. There's Swords of Gargantua. This is this is what I think a big part of what bothers me about this game right now is that, sure, maybe it didn't sell well. Your updates didn't go well. It wasn't the same build on PlayStation VR as it was on Quest or PC or whatever. But the fact that they've announced that it's coming out, that the servers are shutting down in September, and the game's no longer going to be playable because it's a multiplayer-only game. It's just not going to be playable, and it's still available to purchase on the PlayStation Store for $30, right? It drives me up the fucking wall, man. Like, it's like, come on. Like, at least, why isn't there a big flashing red warning button or something that says, are you sure you want to buy this? Because servers are going down in like 5 months. Like, you're literally have 4.5 months left to play this game. Are you sure you want to spend $30 on this right now? And there's just like nothing in place for that right now. And for me, that's super frustrating. And especially the fact that it was like a really fun game that I was addicted to for like a whole month. I played it every single night, 4 a.m. didn't matter. I absolutely love this one. So for me, this just absolutely sucks.
Yeah, I mean, it makes me think about what should be the requirements of a game when it's released, of like minimum number of years it should have support for, especially with these criteria, because in the good old days, you bought a game cartridge for your Mega Drive or your SNES, that is going to play on it. What you've bought, as long as it works, it's going to keep playing it. But then we have the age of demos, DLCs, and patches that constantly can be used to improve it, which on the one hand is great, but it also means it can work the other way, which is it requires support that once it's removed, the game no longer works. And what does it mean for people that purchase it? When you purchase a game, there needs to be transparency, as you say. I kind of feel that, there should become this kind of expectation, and it only comes from community feedback, that I think when games come out, they should have they should come with a roadmap for at least a year. Now, they don't have to be concrete roadmaps of this is what's going to be this date and this DLC, but just give a sense of like what the onward journey is. Because I think a year is going to at least be a clear indicator. Because how many months has it been for this game then before it shuts down from launch?
I'm pretty sure it'll be roughly less than 2 years.
Okay, okay. I mean, it's still not a lot of time. And actually, Brian and I were speaking just before the show, a flat screen game, but an interesting example is with Destiny 2. Now, there'll be some people in the chat that can probably correct me on this, but you had the Destiny game, then Bungie were asked to make a sequel when they kind of wanted to just keep building this Destiny world for 10 years. So Destiny 2, its own campaign, but it's a live service game, so it's all online. Or you have to be online to play it. And then what they've done is they've removed the original campaign for Destiny 2, and instead, when you start playing, if you're a new player now, you play the original campaign missions from Destiny, the original Destiny. So that means that if you bought a physical copy of the game and you put it in, you're actually getting less content than what it was actually sold as, because you're now not getting the campaign that came with the original. And that might be seen as a very strange example, but it sort of shows you this idea of, we live in a world now where when you buy a game, it's kind of like you're buying into a vision of, okay, this is the game and we're going to be doing more stuff with it. We might be doing add-ons, we might be doing patches, but we might remove stuff as well. And, you know, No Man's Sky, on the box, when No Man's Sky first came out, obviously it's a famous story, a great comeback that continues to thrive with every DLC that comes out. But when it first came out, it had multiplayer on the box, and then all the boxes had stickers over the multiplayer component, I believe, because either it was a feature that was removed last minute, but then multiplayer was added in later through the time. But it is just the nature of, as games are much more ambitious, again, going back to the old classic games with cartridges, they were much simpler games. The amount of mechanics and things are now in VR. There's a lot more to be dealing with. And it's not to say that's an excuse, but it is a factor. And so I think for consumer friendliness, there needs to be a conversation. And it's not just down to the developers, it's also down to the platforms, because PlayStation got in a lot of trouble with Cyberpunk because all these people wanted refunds. But PlayStation's policy, I think, is as soon as you play the game, as soon as you open the game,
download it. Sometimes, like their rules are pretty stupid,
right? And that was actually one of the reasons that Sony, even though they wouldn't probably admit it, was so mad with CD Projekt Red, because they literally said, "Oh, if you're not happy with it, contact us for a refund or wherever you purchased it from." And Sony's like, "Whoa, wait a minute." Because then they got absolutely inundated with refund requests that they weren't prepared for. And then there was questions and there was a lot of pressure on Sony of, so what is their refund policy? So sometimes it does require these backlashes to change the culture and expectations to protect consumers. But unfortunately, VR is still such a small consumer community. On the one hand, we don't have the leverage, but at the same time, a lot of developers are indie. So it's kind of matched with small indie developers and small vibrant communities that are effectively their life source, because we're going to be the ones that are feeding them with our dollars, you know?
Well, right. So a couple things. So Cerebral Frost the Boopcat with a $20 tip. Thank you so much. Says, I think this is what I owe you, Brian, paid in full. Another developer figuring out what they owe. So it's funny that you bring that up, because Swords of Gargantua is, there's basically sunsetting that title, and they're focusing on Altair Breaker. That Altair Breaker is their next big VR game. Shuhei played it apparently recently and said it was good, and I'm sure that there's some sort of deal where they're getting on PSVR too. So the question is like, are people going to like hold them accountable and say, well, I'm not going to, I did see, I think it was Matthew Longo in the chat, say, I'm not going to buy anything from them anymore, right? Is that the correct response, right? To be like, well, you know what, you got my $30 and I don't know, man, I'm done. Like, will people buy, let us know in the chat, Cats, are you going to buy Swords of Gargantua's next game or Third Versus next game? Because this is, guys, don't forget, this is true for Starblood Arena. Starblood Arena server shut down per Sony, per order of Sony, and so that game is no longer playable anymore. Drive Club VR is still playable, luckily, because it has a great offline campaign, but it no longer has multiplayer support. Those servers have been shut down. A big one that also came up recently was Until You Fall. We found out that we just weren't getting the two-handed weapon update that other headsets have gotten. And so, the list of complaints is long and varied. But are we gonna just give up on these devs? Like, Until You Fall is Shell Games. They made I Expect You to Die 1 and 2. They're the ones making Among Us, but not for PSVR 1. So fuck you. I love Shell Games too. If anybody from Shell watching, it's like, oh man. but still, it does feel like a stab in the back to announce your game for PSVR and then not deliver. And I think that's heartbreaking for all of us who were super excited for that. But yeah, Until You Fall didn't get the update, and why didn't we get the update? Likely poor sales. Poor sales on PSVR, and that was one of the PlayStation Plus games too. So like, you got to wonder who even downloaded that for free if they're just stopping updates on PSVR 1. It's kind of nonsensical, but at the same time, Miles, should we expect a developer to continue supporting a game on a platform that isn't making them money when they are still supporting the same game on another platform that is making them money? Is it fair to ask them to do that?
Well, the easy answer, but the unrealistic one is, we shouldn't expect it of them, because they might not have the resources. Like, at the end of the day, they're a business, and they might actually not be able to do it. But the thing is, we don't know. But who can and who can't.
We do know with Shell Games. Shell Games has their hands in everything. I couldn't tell you what their bottom line is. I couldn't tell you what their profit margin is. But just looking, an outsider looking in and seeing how they've got all these successful games on successful VR headsets, and they've also got their hands in non-VR things and have also been very successful in the mobile market. There's a part of me that says you've got to take a little bit of a hit here. A little bit of a hit to show a sign of good faith and say, so the people who did give us their money and said, this is our favorite game of that year that it came out. I think it was 2019, 2020. I can't remember all the years run together. I think it was 2020. This was because it was one of my favorite games of 2020. And I was looking for an excuse to get back into that game. And I was like, oh, here
that's the interesting thing.
And then they took it away.
Yeah, because you're saying an excuse to get back into it, because they might be looking at it and saying, it's not just about who's bought it. It's like, what is the current active player base? But the other thing is that game was a PlayStation Plus for like 2 months, free game download.
Yep.
And so arguably that's even more of a reason. Like, Sony has given you this great platform. That was actually when I started playing it and fell in love with it. So yeah, I'd say there's a good argument for it. Another game I'd mention, which isn't on our list for this, but taps into a lot of the issues that are mentioned, and I think it's more of a muddied experience of like just no clarity. I pre-ordered this game, and I was willing to stick with it despite there being a few warning signs before it. But after the fall, I was so excited for this game, and I did enjoy when I started playing it. I enjoyed parts of it. Other parts completely baffled and frustrated me. It was like the most unsocial social space where you can talk with anyone. And then I actually played it again with my friend Johnny last week. Again, enjoyed playing Horde mode and that. But there were things in it that still had not been corrected. That I was just like, certain control schemes and that. And I was just like, what has happened here? And it was not a cheap game to buy. And there wasn't much clarity in terms of when stuff was coming out. And it was off the back of a lot of stuff that wasn't coming out yet was kind of not really made obvious when the game was released. There was this sense of you're going to get all this content, and then it's not only, okay, it's up and coming, but when is it up and coming? And there was no real clear roadmap initially. And they're a company, I would say, they do have social media platforms. And this is actually something I'd say as a general point. There are sort of 3 tiers of communication, I think, when it comes to with communities. There's like the bare minimum, which is having a bug form on the website, some way to just feedback and contact them with issues. And then you might get an email back saying, thanks for your thing, we'll look into it. The middle tier is social media accounts. And I know for After the Fall, they have their social media accounts. The amount of response on it, they do a little bit. But I think it's for promotions and, not really dealing with issues and being forthright with that. In my experience, I'm willing to be corrected from hearing other people's experiences. And then the top tier is actually living and breathing the community. And so that's like having your own Discord, Firewall 0 Hour, where they had the massive server issues and like I wasn't unlocking stuff on the initial battle pass that I bought.
Right.
I went onto their Discord and I was able to chat with the devs, and they got back to me. They weren't even able to give me a straight answer, but they were saying, yeah, we're working on it, we're trying our best. And I really respected it. And this is the thing I was mentioning at the beginning. Having good communication isn't the same as saying, we expect you to come back to us with clear answers to all of our questions. Just saying, we hear you, and making the community feel that we are being heard and acknowledged is valuable. That's how you build trust, so that when there are difficult decisions to be made, whether it is pulling something down, we go, oh, okay, that's terrible, but we understand it. Whereas if it just comes out of nowhere, and it's like the only contact we've had is when, I've had a receipt for buying the game and had an email for you for that. But apart from that, it's like, I just feel like you see me as just a consumer. And again, I hate to say this with After the Fall, I felt like robbed is a strong word, because there's a lot I love about the game and there's a lot of potential for it. But I did feel like, ouch, like I felt there was just a huge distance between us and the developers, in my opinion, again.
Yeah. But and I don't think you're going to find many complaints there from me, because as you know, I do feel like, if After the Fall had come out for like $24.99, it would have been like, oh, okay, that's what your game is, sweet. But when you launch it at $50, you're like, really? Like, or even, what was it, 40 and 50 was two price points?
Yeah, I bought the top one. Yeah.
It was like, wow, I've definitely expected more for this price point, for sure. And so we had a couple more examples on the list. Solaris Off-World Combat was kind of the opposite of First Contact, the opposite of Firewall, right? Where like Firewall, yes, there were issues that they worked on addressing, and maybe not everybody's happy with the choices that First Contact made, but you can't deny all of the content that kept coming for Firewall over and over and over throughout the course of the years, right? It was just like every new season brought new contractors, a lot of them brought new maps, new devices, new gadgets that really changed up the way the game was played, new weapons. And so First Contact kind of killed it with content moving forward, but then they brought a Solaris Off-World Combat, which was the complete and total polar opposite. They were like, here it is, and they like gave us a super deep discount on it. What was it, like $12, $13 with Plus at launch? And we're all like, okay, it's fun, and it's fun enough. I had a lot of fun with it. I gave it an 8, and then literally the day after the game came out, we couldn't even get a match going. Right? It's like, I think you and I jumped in with a couple of the other cats, and we're like, we were the only people playing. Like, so not only did they not deliver any updates, but like one of the most important things that I think multiplayer games need to have is the option to have bots. Right? And it's like, and maybe this is, and maybe this is asking too much from small developers, but First Contact, I don't think, is small enough to not ask to deliver some bots, right? Especially when you get Reggie over there at Strange Game Studios, a one-man dev team who's delivering bots in Honor and Duty D-Day, a 16v16 multiplayer game, right? They don't have to be the smartest bots ever, man. Like, just let us play your fucking game, I did like Solaris, that when you went into a game, you were thrown in until you waited for more players. So having bots, it doesn't have to be anything too much. Solaris is a great example, actually, because I was a massive champion for that game. I loved it. It made me think about Quake and old deathmatch games. Also was the first one to get the platinum trophy in the world. Don't mind saying so myself. Do we need a sound effect for that? Something.
We need 4 chords of that. No, but I sent a massive email to the team afterwards saying, by the way, first one to get a platinum trophy. But I also sent him that wasn't a long email, that was a quick bit at the top. The long email was like, here is my experience of the game, this is what I loved about it, this is the feedback I have, and my main big point at the bottom was, this game is going to fail or succeed based on the onward roadmap, additional content, additional maps. You're going to need to, and look, they don't have to listen to what I say, like I'm just one voice, but I did. It was a very constructive email, and they did get back to me and said, yeah, there's more to come. And there was nothing else came. And they were still doing they were doing featured, Frank and that were doing featured weekly streams, which were great. Love what he tries to do. But it's there's only so much a community manager can do if it's all in sync with the priorities of devs. And again, we're having these conversations, and it's very easy for us to criticize these certain things. We're not the ones behind the scenes dealing with all these components in organizations. But for me,
sadly, though, we're the ones that have to play the games, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Because I'm either reviewing it and the studio gave it to me, and they're like, this is no fun because your game's fucking busted, or alternatively, hey, I want to jump in and have some fun with the cats, and now like the game's supposed to be fun, and sometimes it's just a frustrating experience. Especially I did like what Solaris did with like while you're waiting, you get to play, but sometimes you just waited forever, like nothing.
Yeah,
happened.
for sure. Agreed. Yeah, and I should probably benchmark it on the other side of things, which is, although I'm giving a bit of credit of like the hard work, us as consumers, we want to support these games, and the amount of stuff that you do, you normally have to pay for like surveys and marketing to get feedback. You're getting all this for free, like passionate gamers that are giving feedback.
Yeah.
And if I send that email and they go, oh, it's just one person, and one of my favorite quotes in the world is the plural of anecdote is not data, but you can actually get data by running surveys. So you go, okay, here are some of the things we've heard. And actually, I know that speaking with Jimmy from End Dreams, he didn't go into specifics, obviously, because it's what he does for work, but he sort of gave me a sense of, what is done after a game like Fract comes out. And they do analysis. And they might look at stuff as like, what were the top criticisms? The game was too short. And, they actually measure it, not just from the loudest voices online, but like they cast the nets wide and find out what do players overall think of it, what is the completion time and things like that. But what I was going to say about First Contact Entertainment is, as a company, the impression I got is there was clearly a decision that this game isn't a priority right now. We're moving on to something else. What that something else is, I don't know. I mean, obviously, Firewall Zero Hour is still getting updates. That's great. Firewall Zero Hour is still a PlayStation VR exclusive, yeah? It never came anywhere else, did it?
No.
And so on the flip side, I'm like, as a company, they've done both the bad that we're saying in terms of no updates at all, and they're also in the other side, they're the best example. So that's just based on where they've been prioritizing. So it might have been, should we slow down on on Firewall on our updates just to do a bit more of Solaris? They may have just looked at it and gone, okay, Solaris is going to be what it is, but Firewall, actually, we've got a really engaged community. This is where we should be investing our time, because it's not just as simple as let's just scale up the workforce and get more devs in. It's a very difficult thing of scaling up that takes time. But
okay, so I see some hostility brewing in the chat, and I think this is perfect because this is a great segue. First of all, Darth Vader, the Game Cat, with the $2 tip says, communication is key from developers. We 100% agree. Communication from all sides is always the best thing you could possibly do for whatever it is you're doing. Et.2k9.now with the $10 tip says, I don't know if I'm going to buy Gran Turismo 7 after seeing that it's not going to work without servers. That's a pretty bold statement, considering that like we're going to spend hundreds of hours in Gran Turismo 7. We're going to spend, and a lot of people have spent hundreds of hours in Firewall. At what point do you go, well, that wasn't worth my $50 or $60, right? You like hundreds and hundreds of hours spent. That wasn't worth it. Because I can't play it anymore. Not worth it to me. I've got nothing but amazing memories of Firewall. But when they shut it down, I'm going to be like, that sucks. But would I trade that? Would I trade all of that? Would I be like to have never played it at all? I don't know. I don't know if I can get there. I hate the fact that when certain developers shut down their servers, the game just goes away. But also, I can't say I'm not going to buy Gran Turismo 7 knowing that I will put in 200 hours into it.
Right. How's this as a potential solution? And I've already got questions about this suggestion I'm about to make, which is, what if Sony said for PSVR 2 or just even flat screen games, we are going to make a guarantee that any game you buy that's live service or is in that category where it relies on online play, we will guarantee that we will support it for a minimum of 5 years from launch, or 3 years.
Yeah.
the question I've got about it is, does that then take the pressure off the developers, because they go, actually, we only have to, we can just do it for half a year, because then Sony will pick up the rest. But there must be some kind of agreement they could do, which is, to ensure that there is that minimum guarantee. Because on the one hand, I'm like, live service games, that's terminology that maybe I'm being uncharitable here. The majority of casual gamers aren't familiar with or don't think about when they buy games.
Maybe.
But maybe that is becoming mainstream because everyone's playing more and more online. I think, again, it comes to changing the culture, whereas consumers, as they become, wiser, again, casual gamers I'm talking about, that the expectation should be, well, no, Sony needs to start putting on guarantees that we will support games so that you get a minimum of this many years. Because, look, PlayStation 4 is still being supported. There is going to become a time where it's no longer supported. They've just started shutting down certain aspects of. I think the PlayStation 3 store has now been shut down on the main platforms.
Yeah.
People aren't kicking off about that because there is a certain limit that we all expect of how many years and generations. So I think
there were still plenty of people who were like, "Are you fucking kidding me? They're shutting it down." I'm like, okay, well. I guess. Yeah,
that's true. You will always, especially when you've. Yep. Yeah, exactly. But then I think it comes back to the thing about communication that Sony needs to start working out what are the rules of engagement when it comes to refund policy and support of servers, because for indie games and that, Sony could, and this is again an oversimplification and from someone who clearly doesn't know how this works, but I'm like, surely they could have a pool of servers which is like, this is for indie games. Because they're not going to have huge online. It's not like we're going to be having to support Call of Duty servers because, massive servers with massive amounts of players. But Activision have that all sorted. But yeah.
Yeah, this gets us into the most complicated part of our conversation. We got Twitcher, the I Love Swordsman Now, GameCat, with the comment saying, what would be even better is if they just didn't make a game with a single-player campaign that requires an online connection. Matthew Longo is saying hybrid games are the way to go with VR multiplayer games. Like these are all great suggestions, great solutions. But right now, when we buy a game, there's no guarantees. That's like a hard fact. Is like there's no guarantees on anything when you buy a game. There's nothing that says the developer has to keep supporting the game. That any of the updates that they promise actually have to come out. There's no guarantee on how long those servers are going to be in place. As Miles was suggesting, with hey, maybe Sony can step in and say we can help you out and maybe we can make a deal and say all these live service games. Obviously, first party games, Sony. They can crack down on it and be like, well, we've got full control over this. We can guarantee you that for the lifespan of the PlayStation 5, these games are going to be playable and blah, 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 whatever. But with third parties, it's a little bit different. Running servers is a little bit, can get a little bit expensive depending on how you do it. I had a long chat with our good friend over at Electric Cat today, and he explained to me that it was, there's obviously different ways to do it. You don't need servers if you could do peer-to-peer. And then that's great for like co-op games where you're not like attacking each other. And so that's kind of a solution right there for co-op games, but not so much for like PvP games. If you're running your own servers, it's super cheap. You can keep those running forever, but so many times most of the studios are renting servers, and that costs money because not only are you paying like a flat monthly fee, but you're also paying something that for what they call CCUs, which is I know I wrote this down wrong, and he's going to be mad at me for saying it wrong. Concurrent users, and so if the more people who are playing your game, the more you're actually being charged every month. And so, but even whenever that number drops down to zero, you're still paying a flat fee. And so, if you are a third party and you are renting servers, it can get expensive. Now, that's not always the case, right? Because we talked to Reggie over at Strange Games, and Reggie's like, I've got games that I was selling for $1 on the 360 whose servers I still have up and running. So it's not like he's got this amazing cash flow coming in to keep those servers running, but there he is, right? So there are ways to go about this. Now, I think that's sort of, I think that's those examples sort of exemplify, because that's what examples do. They exemplify the different outlooks that developers have when it comes to creating their games. I kind of want to say like more developers should start thinking within their own means and being like, listen, if this game comes out and no one plays it, like we got to make sure we have the infrastructure in place to keep the servers running on our own, and we're not paying a third party this exorbitant fee that we can't sustain without players. There's so many. If you go on the PlayStation Network right now and you look up the terms of service, it'll say we may indefinitely suspend or discontinue online access to content or data associated with your PSN account at any time, including for server deprecations, maintenance, service, or upgrades without prior notice or liability. We may also discontinue offering certain PSN content or features. For any PSN content that uses online servers, we make no commitment to continue to make those servers available. In addition, we reserve the right to delete player account data that we determine have been dormant. That's some harsh wording, being like, you can spend $70 with us and we make no guarantees that that game is going to be playable tomorrow. That those servers are going to be up and running and you're going to be able to play multiplayer games tomorrow. And so because there's no guarantees in this space, Miles, we got to come up with some guarantees and figure out if any of these are viable. Are you ready?
We do indeed.
Are you ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. And again, I'm sure a lot of developers will listen to this and go, well, that's just not possible. Right. And I understand that. But also I think that if you start with these thoughts in mind, if you start development with these thoughts in mind, then maybe you design your game slightly differently than you were going to before, right? And you can make it a more sustainable game. Instead of being like, well, we spent 3 years making this game, no one played it, so that's it. Like, that's it, we're shutting it down. We had one chance and we lost. I think if you start development with some of these ideas in mind, you'll have a better future. So starting with, number one, the game that you bought should always be playable. That's a very vague statement, isn't it, Miles? Very vague.
Well, yeah, you'd assume it would always be playable, but it's absolutely true. Like, does that mean that games that are multiplayer only should have a single player component?
Or bots?
Or what? But yeah,
right. If I want to play a game that I bought on PS4, like fucking 10 years ago or 10 years in the future, whatever it is, man, I don't know how time works. There should always be a way to jump in there and at least play with bots, right? Like, as somebody who loves video game preservation, as somebody who's like thinks that like, games are art and should be treated that way and respected as art, I don't like the idea that a game is just going to disappear because the servers get shut down.
Yeah, you can't even walk around the levels. Like, you literally can't get past the menus. So you are now being closed off completely from this content.
Right.
So people would argue, oh, but the bot stuff isn't why I play it. The whole point isn't that it's going to substitute what the game was made for, but it means you've at least still got the essence of what it was in some way.
Right. And if you build your game from the ground up with that MO in mind, then there's no reason why it can't always be playable. There's no reason. I don't care what game we're talking about.
Yeah.
The next guarantee, which again we'll figure out if these are viable as we go.
Yeah.
The servers when at the point of purchase, when you are clicking on that purchase button on the PlayStation Store, there should be either an agreed amount of time that the servers are going to stay up for, or at the very least warn you the servers are going to go down in this many days. And again, this speaks right to Swords of Gargantua. That game will not be playable ever again in 5 months. And so when you go to the PlayStation Store right now, before you click that buy button and they take your $30 from you, there should be a big fucking red warning that says you only have 162 more days to play this game, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I'm bad at math. And I think that's only fair.
And that goes back to the guarantee thing, that the button doesn't have to say exactly how many years. It could say it's going to be available for at least this many years. So it might just say 1+ year, but that's better than nothing, because you might say, well, that's still not much of a guarantee. That's actually better than what we've currently got. It's about increments in the right direction. It's about progress.
Right. And then the final one is the final guarantee that I feel like we should have is that the game will receive the same updates on this platform as it's getting on every other platform. Now,
and what I would put to that is the fact that when a game is advertised, it is not advertised. Here's the commercial for PlayStation, and here's the commercial for Oculus. It's here is the game we were talking about Among Us earlier.
Yep.
And then at the bottom, it says it's available on all these platforms. It is sold as this is it, and it's on all these platforms. There's some cases where it is done individually, but when it is, it's done for a reason because there are specific offerings, and that makes sense. But when a game is sold on all these platforms through this window, then I think this is absolutely spot on.
Yeah, yeah, and honestly, if a game is selling well enough on another platform to warrant updates still coming, it's sort of that rising tide model, right? Where if you delivering free updates or whatever it is to a game means that it's sort of getting the spotlight again and generating more sales, which I can only imagine is what's happening with Swordsman VR right now. Every time they update that game, it gets a little bit of the spotlight, and whether that spotlight be over here or on another VR channel or wherever it is, it's bringing more attention to your game, and so you are generating more sales. And so maybe you can't justify doing the updates on PSVR, right? Because it's not bringing enough sales in with every single update. But I think you really, again, you have to plan ahead to be like, listen, if this platform over here fails completely, the updates that we're bringing to this platform, like we have to be making enough money to keep bringing the updates to all platforms, because otherwise you're generating a lot of bad will. And I know I saw a tip in the chat earlier saying that most gamers probably don't pay attention to developers. Most gamers probably don't pay attention and only maybe later realize oh, this kind of feels like that other game I played a few years ago, and then realize the connection. Like a lot of gamers aren't going to be like, oh, I'm not going to buy whatever that next Swords of Gargantua game is because Swords of Gargantua was only supported for 20 months or whatever it was. Like most gamers aren't going to notice that, and so I don't know, man. I don't know.
I do think a lot of this is going to be sorted with the parity that's going to be formed with that all platforms are becoming much more similar in their architecture. They obviously have different, but there is becoming to create games across different platforms. Obviously, there are differences, but I think they are much more similar than they've ever been before. And on top of that, if PSVR 2 is going to be playable on PlayStation PC on their own system for PC, that will also make this more likely. Because it's going to be easier for devs.
How possible do you think that is? Do you think that's a pretty likely thing? PlayStation?
What, the PC?
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know. I think it's more likely than any other option. I'd say it's over 50%, but it might be 51% chance of happening. I don't know. I just feel that the whole bottleneck argument we talk about about the launch, we're early into the PS5 release. How are they going to bring on PC VR players? Okay, well, you can actually now play PlayStation VR on your PC. For me, it seems like a smart business choice. But then again, I don't work for PlayStation, so they want to employ me just to enact that policy. Get in touch, but yeah.
I got to say, this is kind of a super frustrating show to be a part of, right? Because it's sort of like we're up against these multi-billion-dollar corporations, and we, they say, hey, why would we make any of these guarantees for you? Because all we're doing is protecting our own ass, and so when we decide to shut something down because it's not making us any more money, then we're good to go. It's like Sony can do and say whatever the fuck they want. Basically, if you read the terms of service, they're like, "Yep, we have complete control over all of this stuff, and it doesn't matter what you think or say or do. We are not liable for any complaints that you have." And so it's a frustrating topic to talk about. But in an idyllic future, I do really think that this is that these things need to be addressed. I do think that there's enough people who are complaining about these things. I do think that there's enough people like me who look at video games as art, and unfortunately, I do think the younger generation sees video games as disposable media, And sadly, that's also how developers or publishers specifically, I think, are starting to see these things as well. So it makes me a little bit nervous for the future, especially as we move into an all digital future. We no longer going to have access to the games that we paid for, the games that we love. So a little nerve wracking, but also hopefully the more we have conversations like this, Miles, the more progress we can make, and the more, somebody will listen and go, you know what, that does make sense. Hopefully.
No, I totally agree with that. I also feel that it does come down to, it's going to require very big controversial examples of egregious behavior from developers or publishers that causes a massive backlash for then there to be a real conversation. And again, because VR is such a small community compared to the larger gaming community, I don't think the VR issues are necessarily going to be dealt with until quite far into the PSVR 2 era, at the very least. Because the two issues I think of off the top of my head is the Cyberpunk, for the reason I mentioned about refund policy for Sony. That did cause them to have to go and think about it and make changes. And another example I think about was with Star Wars Battlefront 2. It was the whole, you got to pay. It was like pay to play. I think it was. They'd worked out how many credits you need to grind to unlock certain characters and how many tens of hours it is. So instead, you're better off just buying it. And a lot of people said, "Oh, actually, I'm not going to be buying the game." And it's always that thing of when people say they're going to boycott a game, how many people are actually going to boycott it? And I remember I was quite casual with it, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm actually not going to get this game for that reason." Turned out a lot of people made that decision, and it became a massive conversation. And EA noticed massive revenue drops compared to the first game due to that controversy. And so loot boxes and that is still an ongoing thing, but it then became something brought up in Parliament in the UK. There was a committee meeting about it. So it then became a part of discussion with government policy. So these things do make waves, but unfortunately it needs big splashes to begin with, to start those conversations. And it will require, as I said in my first point, egregious examples with certain games for changes to be made, where there's going to have to be some massive game where they take it offline. Everyone like, well, actually, it was happening recently with PlayStation 3 games, was it? I think it was, or Vita or something like that. Yep. They said we're going to stop selling games, and then there was a massive backlash. And then Jim Ryan actually did a blog post and went, "We got this wrong. We're actually going to keep it open a bit longer." So, yeah.
Well, and as you said pretty elegantly earlier on, it's all about communication, and if there's a decent discourse back and forth with the people who are making the games, people who are creating the hardware, and the people who are forking out the money day in, day out to buy the hardware, buy the games, then we're obviously moving to a better future. Just to add one more discussion point before we wrap this up, Joseph Paul Jr. with the $5 tip says, "What do you guys think about devs adding overpriced microtransactions after reviews come out just to get a great rating and then avoid the hate on release?" Joseph, I'm going to tell you right now, if anybody out there says we're in favor of it, then they're fucking out of their mind. It's shitty business, man. It's very shitty business. The Gran Turismo thing was not cool. And I think they seems like they're slowly reversing their stance on that now.
Ryan Mystic, the PlayStation YouTube channel, actually on his Let's Talk PlayStation Friday feature today was speaking about that Sony and Microsoft are looking at ways of bringing commercials into free-to-play games, which is obviously not great. And one of the examples he gives on the video was that I think it was a UFC game that came out, and after the reviews came out, a month or two later, they then did an update where between rounds in the fight, full-page commercials came up for movies about to come out. God. And there was a tweet that was featured saying the fact that they've added this after the reviews is outrageous, because it's like that is something that should be considered in the review process. So sometimes that stuff you can't avoid. But the community knows about it, and then a lot of them are going to go, well, now I know what that publisher does, I'm going to think twice about supporting it next time. The issue is when developers might have or publishers have a monopoly on a certain property. So if it's like UFC, well, this is the only way you're going to play a UFC game if that's what you like, or if it's soccer. It tends to be with sport, whereas fortunately with a lot of other games, there's lots of first-person shooters, there's lots of puzzle games. Yeah. When there's not a monopoly, there's more chance for getting it right.
And again, more communication, the better. The more you tell people about your plans and what's going on and listening to people's complaints, the better off you're going to be. Miles, let's end the show with a little game of PSVR 20 questions. I've got a PSVR game in mind. You've got a mind to ask 20 yes or no questions. That was not a good way to say that. And figure out what game I'm thinking of. Please, cats out there, help him out. They've got all sorts of
I need your help.
Yeah, he's gonna need your help on this one. He's gonna need your help on this one bad. Yes, he is. Oh, yes, he is. I'm gonna put 6 minutes up on the clock. Are you ready?
Okay. No, but let's do it.
Okay. Go.
I'm never ready. Even though I have a week to prepare each week. Mentally, it's just such a struggle. Right. Does this game have multiplayer?
Yes.
It has multiplayer. Does this game include shooting weapons?
Yes.
Okay. Can you play with the aim controller?
No.
Is it only move controllers?
Yes.
Okay. Shooting, multiplayer, only move controllers. Is it PlayStation exclusive?
No, that's 5.
What was the question I asked 2 weeks ago that was supposed to be a really good unused question before?
That's not a yes or no question. I'm unable to answer it.
I know you. Yeah, I'm glad you went with that. Is it based in the modern day real world? Like,
no. It's so funny. I don't remember any of the games we've already done. You and I don't remember any of the games. I was just trying to think. I was like, what games have you and I done already? I can't even think. I can't remember what games any of us have thought of done, honestly. So I wonder how recently I've repeated this one.
Is there full locomotion?
There is.
Is it only multiplayer?
I'm sorry. Did you say is it only multiplayer?
Yeah.
For the purpose of this game, I would say yes. It's only multiplayer. That would, yeah.
Oh man, this is so difficult. It's not. It's only move controllers. Game cats.
Okay, you're halfway through your time.
Yeah.
You still have 12 questions left.
So just to go over it, everyone, it is only multiplayer, shooting game, only move controllers. It's not modern day. And there's full locomotion. Are there vehicles in the game?
No.
No vehicles.
No.
No, it's not Solaris because you can use the aim controller for that. Oh man, this is so difficult. Yeah, is it an MMO RPG?
It is an MMORPG.
Okay, yeah. This is
The chat had you like about a minute ago.
well, yeah. Can you fly in it?
You can fly in it.
Can you cook in it?
I mean, you can cook in it. I have trouble, but you can.
Can you join guilds in it?
You can join guilds in it.
Do you have to go through AJ to join guilds in it?
No, you don't. Not anymore.
Oh, not anymore. Is this a new thing? Does that throw me off? Because that was what I remember it being.
Could you just guess the game?
Is it Zenith: The Last City?
It is Zenith, The Last City.
Zenith, I know. Well, I'm going with my accent. Yeah, I love you go. No, it wasn't. It wasn't. It was Zenith. yeah.
I'm sorry.
Wrong.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Somehow after
Sorry,
all those
Brit.
questions.
Yeah.
That's pretty good, man. It's pretty good. Zenith's Last City. It's funny because with you and Wes, I got to play it pretty safe because I'm like, oh man, the last thing I want to do is pick a game that you've never even played before, maybe never even heard of. But we'll get there. We'll get there.
No, that's a good one. It's a good one.
Nice. We got Donatello, the Scientist Game Cat, with a $20 tip. Says consumers have the power. There are too many people that have forgotten this and give passes to companies. I hear too many people that think companies are really in charge. Without our money, they are nothing. Even Sony, 100%, Donnie. Fight the power. Like really, again, just as Miles said, but people are always saying, "Oh, we're not going to buy their next game," or "We're going to ban this," or whatever. We're going to stop. It never happens. It never happens. People talk a lot and don't act. Right? Your actions speak infinitely louder than words. If you vote with your wallet, that's the only thing companies care about. If they don't get your money, suddenly they listen. 100% agree.
And it's a double-edged action because it's not just about withholding your money from one. It is literally voting with your wallet and investing that money into the devs that do well. You know, there could be. I think of Boxed In with Richards, solo developer who made that game, and then he did the GameCats Island, and he was in the Discord and adding the Miles Dyer Castle, whatever it was. Like, but he was listening, and like a solo developer doing all that was amazing. And so it was like, yeah, get everyone to buy it, even if it's not your sort of game. It's like these are the developers we should be getting behind because we want to promote a positive culture in that way. And speaking of positive culture, we've just hit 100 likes, so thank you everyone. And if you haven't already, smash the like button.
Smash it! We got Loopy the Underground Game Cat with the €2. Says, Miles, did I just hear you say soccer?
Oh, yeah. It's because if I should have said hand egg. That's what we said on Wednesday. Was it when you were talking with Wes about American football? Was it on Wednesday?
Did you say
there was a lot of talk in the chat about hand egg because that's what the game is.
Oh, man.
Hand egg.
Yeah. I didn't know if like the UK had just finally come around and been like, fine, we'll call it soccer.
No, we call it football.
No,
because you use your feet in it, which is quite a good characteristic of football. Whereas hand egg is actually a better name for. I would love to learn the rules of American football one day though, because it baffles me. I don't understand them at all. It's just very stop-starty, but yeah.
Yeah, that's. I mean, when I was a kid and like we'd watch football games as a family. The whole family would come over and like it'd be Thanksgiving Day or whatever it is. I was like, I want to get into football, and I was like, so slow, man. It's like how come it's like 30 seconds of action or like 10 seconds of action every 5 minutes?
Right.
I'm like, this is painful, and I really have
GameCats in the chat. Just honest. If there was a game that came out for PSVR 2 as a launch title and it was called Hand Egg VR, would you buy it?
Nope.
I think so. Hand Egg VR.
Only if it was a VR version of Billy Hatcher and the Giant Egg, which, if anybody knows what I'm talking about, then you were also.
But if it's got ray tracing, I'm in.
Guys, thank you so much for hanging out with us today. Obviously, if you don't already, subscribe to Miles Dyer over on his YouTube channel or follow him on Miles Dyer Official on Instagram. Please do that because he is amazing and we love having him here. And, I don't know if it's not worth his time. One day, maybe he'll stop showing up. You just never know what could happen around here. People stop showing up all the fucking time. Like nonstop kind of. It's like, yep, I wake up and go, where's Michelle? And then I realized it's been like 5 years. But thank you guys so much. You guys have been really, really amazing supporting the channel. Thank you to everybody who donated during the show. Thank you to everybody who supports on patreon.com/withoutparole games. Don't forget, for $3 a month, you can get your name scrolling on that little scroll down below, and also have access to voice chat over on Discord, where I pretty much hang out all day. Trust me, it's not a privilege, but it's cool to hang out. And also, for $5 a month, I promise you, at some point, we're going to get these Patreon exclusive videos up. I keep trying to get people to do Why We Love episodes with me, and they're all like, eventually. And I'm like, okay. But until then, we also have the monthly AMAs, which again are exclusive to the $5 tier. Just really, really appreciate you guys keeping the channel running with the lights on during this extremely, extremely slow time. And also thank you to all of you who sat back and watched the show, didn't say a goddamn word. We know you aren't there. We love you just as much. Thanks, Miles.
Thanks, Brian. And thanks, GameCats. It's always a pleasure. Really enjoy it. So much positivity, and it's a good way to start the weekend. So have a wonderful weekend, everyone.
That's right. Let's run that thingamabob. So do you think that there's people out there that really do put the milk in first, or are they just imaginary?
I don't know. That I never thought about it. It's one of those things I don't want to really think about, or I have sleepless nights over it.
Yeah, no, that is like nightmare inducing for sure. Like I there's so many things about that I would stress out about.
The thought of someone doing that right now freaks me out a bit.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Agreed.